Feature Friday, everyone. It's so great to have all my quilting friends with me here for another week. Today we are going to be going over a couple different features available on your robotics system as we complete the quilt that I've had on the frame for the past couple weeks that we've been working on together. We are going to be using our free motion feature with Record and Applique, and we're going to be using our crop feature so that I can background fill the space around the little fox design that's in the center and make sure that we're not stitching over the little fox. So I'm going to turn you guys around so we can look at the quilt and see how to do that. All right, everybody, so I am sure we all recognize this little quilt here, and we've done the borders together in a couple different ways. I did fill in this last border here that has the pink houndstooth with a point-to-point design, and now we're ready to work on our center section here with the little fox in it. Now this is a big open space around the fox, and I want to do a fill around it, but I don't actually want to stitch on my fox. So we're going to applique around our fox and then fill in our design around the background, and we will use a couple different features to do that. I do want to let you guys know that I have some marks here in the corners, about 1 inch in on each corner, that I've already put into place, and that's going to be where my layout box is. I have a pretty piece of ribbon that I'm going to stitch down to the quilt and make like a little frame around this when I get it off, and so I don't want my design work to go underneath here. There's no reason for it when I'm going to cover it up. So I'm just going to come in a little bit on all of my edges when I'm doing my layout box. All right, we are going to look at our robotics, and as you can see, I am here in layout as highlighted here, and all I've done so far is just set my safe area, and that's what you see here on the screen from when I turned my system on. Just set the safe area. We are going to go to our free motion icon here that's underneath layout, and it looks like a little video camera, and not everybody might have this available on their system, so this is for you who have this on your system. We've got free motion, and now that it's highlighted, it turns green, and our ribbon over on the right hand side turns green with a couple of icons in it as well. We've got our start and stop record button, and we're going to be using the applique button. So I am going to move my machine just into place here. I'm going to be tracing around the outside of my fox design, and I'm going to try very hard to use my foot as a guide and kind of stay as close to the fox with the foot that I can, but I am probably not going to be perfect at this, holding it one-handed with the camera. I am going to start my record, and when I hit start record, the icon turns orange, and now I can move the machine, and it's going to record the movements of my machine. So I'm going to take this nice and slow so I get a pretty close trace line around this. It doesn't have to be perfect for me. I'd probably do a little bit better if I had both hands to control the machine, but we're going to do the best we can. I'm just going to try and get around this, and I'm going to show you here that on the screen it is tracing and drawing the line on the screen for me as I am going around my little fox. I'm going to get his ears in there. I actually do a little bit better if I move the machine a little bit faster. And as I'm coming to an end here, I want to make sure that I connect the green and the red dots so I make a full circuit around this. So I'm going to put my red square on top of my green dot to finish that out. I think that looks pretty good. A little wobbly here or there, but I think that can be forgiven. The next thing we're going to do is hit stop record. And now I've got a big picture for a second of what I've recorded. And we are then going to hit applique. So we're going to turn this into an applique. And when I do that, it turns yellow on my screen and it becomes a dotted line. I hope you guys can see that. I know the lighting's a little funny when it turns yellow like this. So now this has been turned into an applique. The next thing we're gonna do is go back to layout. So I'm gonna hit my layout button, and you can see my little fox outline or applique is still sitting there on the display, but I'm gonna come over to the right-hand side and hit my plus sign to add a new layout. My directions go as normal to set the points of my pattern box. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up with the little marks that I've already put on my fabric. Remember, I said that I'm gonna stitch some ribbon down. So I'm gonna make this in about 1 inch on all 4 corners. So I'm gonna set my first point, bring my robot and my machine down to my second point here, hit my plus sign, go to my third point, hit my plus sign, and my fourth point all the way in the back corner here, get that lined up, and I'm gonna hit my check mark. So now you can see I have the layout box around my little fox all designated. The next thing we're gonna do is add our pattern into our layout box. So we're gonna do our fill design of what we want stitched out. I'm gonna go to patterns, and I have a pattern already chosen. I've got these little hearts and pearls, which I think is adorable since we've already put hearts and circles on our borders. I think this will go well, so I'm gonna hit my check mark. And now I've only got 1 repeat of this in my box. I'm gonna want this a lot more dense, and we're gonna end up moving it around a little bit because as you can see on this design, it doesn't quite go up to the very edge in here. So that would be some empty space. And the design leaves a lot of empty space over here. So we're gonna do some manipulation of our design because I want my full layout box completely filled with no gaps in it. So let's see how we do that. First thing I'm gonna do is go over to my repeat function here at the top on the right-hand side, and we're gonna give this a few horizontals and a few verticals so that we have more design to work with. I'm gonna give it 4 horizontal, and we're gonna go down 3 times vertically. So that's what we've got on our screen. And that might be okay, but if you can see this, we've got a gap in between our rows. So our spacing is gonna be a little off here. I wanna close that up, and we can do that by using our spacing here, and we are gonna be changing our vertical spacing. And we wanna decrease the space that's in here, so we are gonna use our minus. So I'm just gonna minus, and you can see that changing on the screen. And that might be a little too close. I'm just gonna back that up 1. And I think that looks pretty good. We've taken out all the major spacing, but I think we've kept the integrity of the design in between the different rows. That looks pretty continuous to me. So my spacing went to a negative 1.30 on my vertical to get that all to fit in there and look nice with the spaces between the rows. So that looks good, but now we want to kind of shrink this down a little bit because my little orange box is up here, and this is an awful lot of design. So I'm going to shrink this down so it gets more dense and is closer to the size of my orange box. I'm going to go to my scale feature. When I've got my scale feature, I'm going to just touch on this so I have my blue nodes so that I can use my finger and just scale this down and scrunch it up into a little bit smaller so you can see my orange dotted outline back there. I've got much more of the design density and filled into my space. I want a lot more of those hearts within my space, so I'm much more dense now. But you can still see, as we talked about earlier, I've got little gaps up at the top here and down the side here. So in order for me to fix that, I am going to move this design and center it over my layout box. I'm going to use the green node that you see in the center and just touch on that and move my design and center it over my layout box. Now I don't see any gaps around the edge of my design area. But when I go ahead and quilt this out, I would have quilting going all outside my area, and I don't want that. So we're going to use our crop feature to get rid of all those little hearts and pearls that go outside our orange box. I'm going to come over to my crop feature, which is underneath my scale. It's a little square with another box on top of it where the corners crisscross. So I'm going to highlight that. And when we do that, we've got our crop features across the bottom. So the first crop feature we're going to use is this one here. This is your traditional crop, and it's going to crop out anything that is outside your pattern box. And we want all of the little hearts and pearls that are outside our pattern box to disappear. I'm going to go ahead and touch this button here. And now you can see a bigger version of what we've got. And all of the hearts and pearls that were outside our pattern box are gone. And I've got all of my space filled in, which I really like. One thing to keep in mind when we're stitching out this way and using our crop feature is having your jump stitches turned on is going to be really important, because as you stitch down these designs that have been cropped, we've got a lot of starts and stops and starts and stops as you go along the edges. Having your jump stitches turned on will allow your robotics system to tie off at one end, jump to the next end, tie off, and continue on. Remember that your jump stitches are in your settings, and they're in your parameters tab, and your jump stitches are over to the side. I have mine set at 5 inches. Okay, let's go back to edit, and there we are. So our whole background is currently filled in, but what about our little fox? We want to make sure that we crop out our little fox so that the hearts stitch all around the fox, but not on top of the fox. We're once again going to be in our crop feature, and we are going to hit this little button over here. And when I do that, it has taken out everything that I traced and turned into an applique, so that all of the stitching will remain outside our applique and none of the stitching will go inside. I'm going to put you guys on hold for a second, and I'm going to work on stitching this out so that you can see what it looks like when it's all done. All right, y'all, it is finished stitching out, and I think it turned out great. I love how the hearts look and everything filled in nicely around my little fox here. As you can see, I have plenty of jump stitches that I'm going to have to clip going around my little fox and also around the outside here. Just like I said, that would happen, but it was nice not having to start and stop and clip threads and pull up bobbin threads every single time there was a jump stitch that needed to happen. So it just kind of stitched on through the whole thing. It was really a fun process to do this. And if you've got the crop feature and the record feature available on your robotic system, this is a great way to fill in a background of something that you've got that you want to keep your design in the forefront, and whether it's, you know, printed on your fabric or an applique or an embroidery, that's a great way to do it. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. I hope you have learned a few things, or if you knew how to do this, this might have been a great refresher for you and spark some fun ideas for a quilt top you may have waiting in line to be quilted. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.